They said today would be quiet. No hearings, no judges, no cameras. Just another dead, silent Wednesday at the federal courthouse. But not this Wednesday. Because today the doors of the Southern District of New York are open when they were supposed to stay locked. Security scanners are humming when they were supposed to be dark. And a judge who swore he was done with this case has been called back in. Why? Because a single silver-capped bottle just detonated the future of one of the most powerful men in music. This isn't a rumor. This isn't a headline twist. This is the day Kane Rivers walks back into the same courtroom he thought he'd never see again, and realizes his 4-year sentence might quietly turn into the rest of his life. Before we go any further, ask yourself something. How badly do you have to mess up for a federal court to open on a day it's supposed to be shut? That's how serious this is. Hours earlier, inside a federal facility miles away, the night started like every other night. Dim lights, routine bed checks, officers dragging their feet through another long shift. No shouting, no alarms, no drama. And then 2:17 a.m., one officer stops at a particular bunk, cell 14, inmate Kane Rivers, the platinum-selling hitmaker who, just weeks ago, stood in a designer suit in this same courthouse, listening to a judge read out a 50-month sentence. The officer lifts Kane's thin, worn pillow with one hand. He expects nothing. He finds everything. A small silver-capped bottle, cold, illegally smooth, gleaming under the fluorescent light like a weapon. Not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. Contraband. For a second, he doesn't move. He just stares at it, like his brain is trying to reject what his eyes are seeing. Because this isn't some low-security county jail. This is a federal facility. Bags are searched, cells are scanned, movements are logged, every ounce of liquid is tracked. So how did this bottle get here? Who brought it in? And why was it waiting under the pillow of the most talked-about inmate in America? He doesn't argue. He doesn't shout. He doesn't even deny it. He just looks at the bottle like it's the bullet with his name carved into it. The officer's voice cuts through the silence. Control, this is Unit C. We've got contraband in 14. High risk. Lock it down. No sirens, no flashing red lights. Just something worse. Protocol. Doors slide shut. Hallways freeze. Officers move in tight formation. A supervisor arrives with gloves and an evidence bag. The bottle is photographed, tagged, sealed, logged. Chain of custody created. Chain of events unleashed. Because the problem isn't just that there was alcohol. The problem is who had it and what a judge had already told him. Any violation of federal rules will be treated severely. That warning wasn't just words. It was a line in the sand. And now at 2:17 a.m., Kane Rivers has stepped over it. In the surveillance room, screens start glowing brighter. Rewinds, slow motion, zooms. 1:58 a.m., a shadow moves in the hallway. 2:03 a.m., someone pauses near the door. 2:12 a.m., a faint movement by the bunk. 2:17 a.m., the discovery. It's not perfectly clear. Faces smudge in the grain. Edges blur in the darkness. But one thing isn't blurred at all. The bottle ends up under his pillow. And in the cold language of federal custody, that's all it takes. The warden arrives, shirt half buttoned, eyes wired with tension. He doesn't shout. He doesn't panic. He just looks at the footage, then at the evidence bag, and says the one sentence nobody in that room wanted to hear. Send it to SDNY. The judge needs to see this. You know what that means, right? This isn't a write-up. This isn't extra chores. This isn't a slap on the wrist. This is a federal violation attached to a man who only just escaped a double-digit sentence. By sunrise, the report is complete. Timestamps, photos, officer statements, the sealed bottle, labeled and cataloged like the gun in a murder trial. By early morning, that report has left the prison walls. It's on a secure line, heading straight toward the same courthouse where his fate was supposedly already decided. And while that report travels across encrypted channels, something else starts moving too. Whispers, one clerk to another. Why is the judge being called in on a Wednesday? One security guard to another. Why are media trucks setting up outside? One producer to another. Wait, this can't be real. They're reopening his case? Out on the street, camera crews begin to appear where no one expected them. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, 7 a.m. A news van parks across from the courthouse steps. 7:05, a second one pulls up. 7:12, police start putting up barricades. Nobody knows the full story yet. They just know 3 words: emergency hearing, Rivers. You can feel it in the air. That strange, electric pressure that only hits when something huge is about to happen. But no one has the full picture. Is his time getting cut? Is he being transferred? Is the sentence being reviewed? No one has answers, just questions. And questions are what feed chaos. Inside a small isolation cell back at the prison, Kane sits on a metal bunk, hands cuffed, staring at a wall that refuses to blink back. He knows what that bottle means. He knows where the report is going. And he knows exactly whose name is on the first page. The same judge who looked him in the eyes at sentencing and said, "You are being given a chance. Don't waste it." And now, that judge is being asked one brutal question. What do you do with a man who wastes the one chance the system wasn't supposed to give him? By mid-morning, the answer is already forming in the judge's chambers. The report lands on his desk. He reads the heading. He sees the timestamp. He sees the photos. The bottle under the pillow, the officer's statement, the incident classification, severe misconduct. His jaw tightens. Not because it's shocking, but because it's exactly the kind of thing he warned about. He closes his eyes for a second, just one. Was he too lenient the first time? Did he misjudge this man? Did mercy just come back to embarrass the court? He opens them again. The softness is gone. "Clear my schedule," he tells his clerk. "We're convening today. Full staff, full security. No delay. No waiting for Tuesday. No, we'll handle this later. Today." This is no longer just about Kane Rivers breaking a rule. This is about whether a federal judge is willing to watch his own warning be ignored and do nothing. Outside, the courthouse steps are no longer empty. Reporters rehearse their lines. Producers shout into earpieces. Fans and critics gather behind barricades, phones out, ready to live stream whatever happens next. Some are hoping he walks back out with the same sentence. Some are praying they never see him outside those walls again. But all of them are waiting for the same moment, the exact second Kane Rivers, shackled and surrounded by U.S. Marshals, steps out of a transport van and realizes he isn't just up against the system. He's up against the second chance he already burned. And the one man in that building who has the power to erase his future with a single sentence is already on the bench, holding the report that could do it. The underground garage of the courthouse was never meant to be awake on a Wednesday at this hour, especially not this Wednesday, November 19th, a federal off day that should have felt like a ghost town. But instead, it felt like the heartbeat of a storm. Cold air circled the concrete pillars. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like nervous insects. Boots hammered the ground in rushed, clipped patterns. And then, the transport van rolled in. Its tires screeched against the concrete, echoing through the hollow space like a warning. Marshals shifted into formation even before the engine died, shoulders squared, jaws tight. They weren't treating this like an inmate transfer. They were treating it like a potential explosion. Inside the van, Kane Rivers sat with his wrists chained to his waist, his ankles locked together, his breathing shallow. He could hear every sound outside: the thud of boots, the click of radios, the swirl of tension in the air. And he knew all of it was for him, not the superstar he used to be. Not the businessman with 9-figure deals. Not the cultural giant. Just inmate, Cheers 44721, whose violation report now sat on Judge Halden's bench like a ticking bomb. The door swung open with a metallic crack. 2 marshals stepped inside. Their faces didn't show anger. They didn't show sympathy either. They showed duty. "Rivers, stand up." Kane tried, but his legs felt like they'd forgotten how to hold him. The marshals lifted him by the arms without another word. The moment his feet hit the cold floor, he felt something unfamiliar. Weakness, real, physical weakness. His chains clinked with every step he took, echoing sharply across the garage. Those sounds used to belong to other inmates. Other stories, never his. Each clink was a reminder of the contradiction he had become. A man once worshipped by millions, now walking like a broken shadow toward a courtroom that no longer owed him anything. The marshals led him toward the elevator. Cain saw a familiar figure inside waiting. Victor Hale, his attorney, his last thread of hope. But something about Victor was off. His tie was loose. His hair looked unbrushed. He kept wiping his palms against his pants like he was trying to get rid of sweat. Cain's heart dropped. He'd never seen Victor like this. Not even during the original trial. Not during the verdict. Not during sentencing. "What's happening?" Cain whispered, voice trembling. Victor swallowed hard. "You need to stay quiet in there. Completely quiet. No reactions. No shaking your head. No trying to speak unless asked. You understand?" Cain frowned. "Victor, is it that bad?" Victor didn't answer. He just pressed the elevator button with shaking fingers. The silence was worse than any prediction. When the doors opened on the main level, chaos crashed through the narrow hallway. Reporters packed every inch of space, shouting over one another, pressing microphones and cameras against the security line. The moment they saw Cain, everything spiked. Is it true Cain violated again? Did he hide the bottle himself? Is the judge going for the maximum? Is he facing decades? Life? Did he admit guilt? The marshals pushed forward, shouting for space. "Back up! Keep the hallway clear! Move! Now!" Cain kept his head low, but he could feel every camera lens pointed at him. Flashes lit up the hallway like lightning, burning the moment into 1,000 frames that would hit the internet before the hearing even began. He didn't even dare blink. Not when a photographer screamed for him to look up. Not when a reporter yelled his name like they were calling a dog. Not when someone shouted from the back, "He threw his life away." That one hit him harder than he expected. Victor grabbed Cain's arm before he stumbled. "Keep walking," he whispered. "Don't let them see you fold." But Cain felt folded already. By fear, by regret, by the weight of that bottle, by the shadow of a judge waiting at the end of this hallway. When they finally reached the courtroom doors, Victor stopped him. "Cain, look at me." Cain lifted his head. Victor's eyes were red. His voice shook. "I don't know what the judge is about to do. I've never seen him like this. Just stay calm, please. Your life depends on it." Cain nodded, though he wasn't sure his body would obey. The doors opened. Courtroom 12A was overflowing. Rows and rows of people, reporters, legal analysts, former fans, critics, strangers, every seat packed, every wall lined, every head turned toward the doorway, waiting for him. Waiting to witness the next chapter of his downfall. The silence that fell wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, judging, expecting. Cain stepped inside. The chains around his ankles clinked loudly in the quiet room. The sound made more than one person flinch. He scanned the room weakly, his eyes landing on the prosecution's table. There it was, the evidence bag. Inside it, the silver-capped bottle glinted under the lights as if mocking him. Victor guided him to the defense table. "Sit straight. Don't look at the bottle. Don't look at the crowd. Focus on me." Cain tried, but his gaze kept drifting to the judge's bench, empty for now. For a moment, the room felt like it wasn't breathing, like the air had thickened into something people had to push through. Then a door behind the bench opened. Everyone instinctively rose. Judge Halden entered. He walked in slowly, deliberately, the black robe trailing behind him like a shadow. No expression, no warmth, no traces of the man who gave Cain a merciful sentence weeks earlier. He took his seat. The room followed. He didn't clear his throat. He didn't shuffle his papers. He just stared at the violation report in front of him like it was an insult to the court. "Begin," he said quietly. It was the kind of quiet that held danger. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, at 2:17 a.m. on November 7th, a prohibited alcohol bottle was discovered beneath Mr. Rivers' pillow. Surveillance footage confirms unauthorized activity near his bunk prior to discovery. The defendant did not deny possession." She held up the evidence bag. The bottle sparkled under the courtroom lights. A ripple of tension moved across the room. Cain closed his eyes for a second, trying to steady his breathing. The judge leaned forward. "Place it on the table." The prosecutor set it down with a sharp click that seemed to echo far longer than it should have. Victor stood. Your Honor, the footage is inconclusive. There were inconsistencies with the logs. Judge Halden raised a hand. Victor went silent instantly. The judge's voice sharpened. Mr. Hale, this is not a trial. This is a review of conduct. The only question before this court is whether possession occurred. Kane's chest tightened. His ears rang. The judge continued slowly. And based on the report, the evidence, and the defendant's silence at the time of discovery, it did. The words hit Kane like physical blows. The judge closed the file gently, almost tenderly, which made it worse. Mr. Rivers, I warned you what would happen, and today that warning returns to this courtroom. Kane's fingers trembled, his vision blurred. Judge Halden looked at him with something colder than anger, disappointment. Your disregard for federal rules will be treated severely. The room didn't feel like a courtroom anymore. It felt like a pressure chamber every second, squeezing tighter. Every breath feeling earned, not given. Judge Halden didn't look away from Kane. He didn't even blink. He spoke slowly, like each word was chosen to cut exactly where it hurt the most. You were granted leniency on October 3rd, a sentence significantly lighter than what the prosecution requested. He paused. The pause hurt more than the words. And yet here we stand, only weeks later, with evidence of a violation that demonstrates not just poor judgment, but a fundamental disregard for federal authority. A quiet gasp escaped from someone in the gallery. Victor shot Kane a warning look, don't react. But Kane couldn't help it. His breathing stuttered. His fingers shook in his cuffs. His shoulders sagged like someone had taken a hammer to his spine. The prosecutor stepped forward again, voice cutting clean through the tension. Your Honor, this misconduct cannot be brushed aside. It is not accidental, it is not ambiguous, and it is not trivial. This was a deliberate concealment of contraband by Mr. Rivers. She tapped the evidence bag with one manicured finger. Alcohol is not permitted in federal custody under any circumstance. The presence of this bottle under his pillow demonstrates willful violation. Her voice hardened. We again request the maximum penalty available. Maximum. Kane's stomach twisted. His throat closed. He could feel the blood drain from his face. Victor rose so quickly his chair nearly toppled. Your Honor, please, this is disproportionate. My client is struggling with incarceration. He is under immense emotional pressure. Judge Halden raised his hand again. Sit. The command wasn't loud, but it struck like a lightning bolt. Victor froze mid-sentence, then sank back down slowly, fists clenched on the table. Kane's heart hammered so hard it felt like it might break his ribs. He stared at Halden, desperate for a flicker, anything, some sign that the judge wasn't fully lost to wrath. But Halden's face remained carved from something cold and ancient. No anger, no pity, just resolve. He opened the violation file again, flipping to a photo of the bottle. The lights made the plastic shimmer. Kane Rivers, he began, voice low, controlled, terrifying in its restraint. Possession of contraband inside a federal institution is classified as severe misconduct. He glanced up, eyes sharp enough to slice through steel. And when severe misconduct is committed by an inmate who is granted leniency, this court is obligated legally and ethically to determine whether the original sentence remains appropriate. Kane's breath hitched. That was it. That was the sentence Kane feared more than anything. Whether the original sentence remains appropriate. Because it didn't matter what word came next. Nothing good follows that phrase. The judge flipped another page. Footage shows unauthorized movement near your bunk shortly before discovery. Logs display multiple inconsistencies. However, the bottle was located beneath your pillow. He set the folder down gently, and when confronted, you offered no explanation. A ripple of whispers moved through the courtroom. Kane swallowed hard, throat burning. He remembered that moment, the officer lifting the pillow, the bottle gleaming, the world slowing down, his voice trapped somewhere he couldn't reach. He hadn't spoken because he couldn't. Shock stole the words right out of his lungs. But Judge Halden didn't see shock. He saw guilt. Your silence, Halden continued, is being treated as acknowledgement. Kane's jaw trembled. He opened his mouth to speak, but Victor grabbed his wrist in a silent warning. Do not talk. Do not make it worse. The prosecutor stepped closer to the bench. Your Honor, based on the severity and the timing of this violation, we argue that Mr. Rivers is no longer a candidate for the reduced term he received. She took a breath, her tone steady and unforgiving. He has demonstrated an inability to follow federal rules even weeks after sentencing. Cain felt his heartbeat in his fingertips, his eyelids, his throat everywhere at once. The judge leaned back, interlocking his fingers. Mr. Rivers, stand. Cain's legs barely obeyed. The chains around his ankles rattled faintly as he rose. His head spun. The room swayed. Judge Holden watched him with a gaze that felt biblical. When I sentenced you, he said quietly, I took into account your testimony, your history, the complexity of your case, and the argument that you deserved another chance. He shook his head slightly. I was wrong. The words hit Cain like a blow to the chest. His breath collapsed inward. His knees buckled slightly. Victor reached to steady him, but Cain barely stayed upright. Holden continued. You were explicitly warned that any violation, any disregard of federal rules would be treated severely. His voice sharpened. You chose to disregard that warning. Cain's throat burned with unshed tears, but he forced them down. He had to. He couldn't break here. Not yet, but Holden wasn't done. Possession of contraband inside a federal facility is not just a mistake. It is an act that endangers order. It undermines discipline, and it demonstrates a conscious decision to break rules you were obligated to follow. The judge leaned forward, elbows on the bench. Your violation forces this court to reconsider your sentence from the ground up. A stunned hush fell over the room. Cain's vision flickered at the edges. A tunnel closed around his hearing. His hands shook violently against the cuffs. This was the nightmare he didn't want to face. Holden looked down at the violation report, then back at Cain with a cold finality. Your original sentence of 4 years may no longer reflect the seriousness of your conduct. Victor inhaled sharply. Cain's knees quivered. Holden's tone dropped lower. This hearing is not about whether you stay in federal custody. He let that hang. The silence was suffocating. It is about whether you will ever leave federal custody. Cain's entire world shifted. His mind went blank. His throat closed. His heart felt like it had been kicked down a flight of stairs. His hands trembled so violently the cuffs clattered against the table. Somewhere in the gallery, someone whispered, "Oh my God!" Holden straightened his robe. Mr. Rivers, this court is prepared to issue its final determination. The room froze. Journalists leaned forward. Photographers raised their cameras. The prosecutor stiffened. Victor whispered Cain's name, but Cain didn't hear it. He couldn't hear anything except his own heartbeat slamming in his ears. Judge Holden rested his hand on the edge of the file, and when he spoke next, his voice was the sound of an entire future closing. Your violation justifies enhanced sentencing. Cain's chest collapsed inward. His breath vanished. No, he whispered under his breath, voice cracking. But there was no stopping the judge. The original 50-month term is insufficient. Cain shook his head weakly. His lips trembled. No, please. Holden's expression didn't move. You were given a chance. He closed the file. You wasted it. The air inside courtroom 12A went thin, so thin it felt like the walls were draining the oxygen on purpose. Every person leaned forward without realizing it. Every camera blinked red. Every breath in the room sounded like it belonged to someone waiting for impact. Cain Rivers stood frozen, trembling, throat locked so tightly he could barely swallow. Judge Holden wasn't raising his voice. He didn't need to. His calmness made everything more terrifying. When an inmate commits a violation of this severity, he said, eyes fixed on Cain as if looking through him, this court has the authority to fully reconsider the original sentence. A pulse of shock rippled through the room. The prosecutor didn't move. Victor did just slightly, his fingers tightening around the edge of the defense table, knuckles white, as if bracing for a tidal wave. Cain's knees buckled again, and he gripped the table with cuffed hands to stay standing. Holden turned a page in the file, another photo of the bottle, another timestamp, another silent dagger. What concerns this court most, he continued, is not the presence of alcohol alone. He lifted his gaze slowly. It is the timing. A beat of silence. You violated federal custody mere weeks after receiving a sentence that was already generous. Kane's stomach twisted. He felt his pulse pounding in his neck, his chest, his temples everywhere at once. Holden shook his head once, disappointed but steady. A violation committed this soon after sentencing demonstrates not just poor decision-making, but an inability to comply with even the most basic rules expected of a federal inmate. The gallery murmured softly. That inability, Holden said, voice tightening, raises a more serious question, whether Mr. Rivers is capable of re-entering society at all. Victor inhaled sharply and whispered, Kane, don't break, don't break. But Kane already felt himself breaking. The judge folded his hands, elbows resting on the bench, eyes locked onto Kane with clinical precision. Mr. Rivers, your actions have forced this court to consider enhanced sentencing measures. Kane's chest constricted. His vision blurred. His breathing faltered. He tried to speak. Your Honor, Victor grabbed his arm. Stop. Don't. Not now. Holden didn't scold Kane for attempting to speak. He simply spoke over him as if the attempt didn't exist. This court will not allow contraband violations to undermine the authority of federal custody. He leaned forward slightly. And it will not allow leniency to be weaponized. The prosecutor stepped toward the bench again. Your Honor, in light of the defendant's rapid violation, we formally request the maximum penalty. Mr. Rivers has demonstrated he cannot be trusted with a reduced sentence. Maximum penalty. Those words didn't echo, they detonated. People in the crowd gasped. A reporter dropped her pen. Even a marshal shifted unconsciously, like bracing for something physical. Kane felt the ground tilt beneath him. Victor stood again, voice rising with desperation. Your Honor, please listen to me. A maximum penalty is irreversible. This is a single violation, one incident. Holden raised his hand, cutting him off again. Sit, Mr. Hale. Victor's voice died instantly. He sat, defeated. Kane turned his head slightly toward Victor, eyes wide, pleading, voice barely a breath. Victor, help me. But Victor couldn't meet his eyes. Not because he didn't want to, because he didn't know if he could. The energy in the courtroom shifted again when Holden straightened in his chair, lifting the violation file with one hand. He flipped it shut. The soft thump sounded like a door closing, and Kane felt it in his bones. Holden placed both hands on the bench. Mr. Rivers, he said, tone so measured it felt ominous. Your violation has brought us to a threshold. The room stilled. You violated federal trust. Kane's lip trembled. You violated the terms of your custody. His breath quivered. And you violated the leniency you were granted. Tears welled in Kane's eyes despite every fragment of pride he was desperately trying to hold on to. Holden's expression didn't shift, not even by a millimeter. Given the severity and timing of your misconduct, this court must determine whether the original 50-month sentence remains appropriate. Kane whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. Please, don't do this. The judge continued without reacting to the plea. This court has reviewed the evidence, the footage, the logs, and the statements. The room felt like it was collapsing inward. And this court finds, he said, each word landing with surgical precision, that the defendant's violation justifies an enhanced sentence. Kane's heart shattered. He shook his head violently, voice breaking as it escaped him. No, 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 please, I'm begging. Victor reached out, trying to steady him. Kane, stop. But Kane couldn't stop. He felt everything slipping away, his chance, his future, whatever shred of hope he had left. Holden raised a hand not loudly, not angrily, but with a finality that froze Kane mid-sob. This is not the time for emotional displays. The silence that followed that sentence was suffocating. No one could breathe. No one dared move. Even the lights seemed to hum quieter, as if the room itself was listening. Holden's voice softened, but somehow became even more terrifying. This is the time for consequences. Kane collapsed back into his chair, head hanging, chains rattling like a cry for help. Victor whispered, frantic, Kane, look at me, listen, don't fall apart yet, please. But Cain didn't hear him. Not really. He felt like he was floating outside his own body, watching the worst moment of his life unfold in slow motion. Halden turned one final page in the file more for formality than necessity. "Mr. Rivers," he said quietly, "your violation has altered the court's evaluation of your case." Cain forced his head upward, eyes red, breath shaking, voice barely present. "Please, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking I please." But Halden's face remained unchanged. "We will now move to final determination." The words were so calm, so measured, that they felt crueler than any scream. Cain's entire body trembled. His lips parted. A sob escaped. "No, no, please." But the judge didn't look away. He didn't soften. He didn't hesitate. He simply prepared to close the chapter on Cain Rivers' life as he knew it. And everyone in the courtroom knew whatever sentence was coming next. It would break him. The courtroom felt colder than before, not physically, emotionally, like every ounce of warmth had been sucked out and replaced with a chilling certainty. Something irreversible was about to happen. Judge Halden didn't rush. He didn't flip pages quickly. He didn't look flustered or angry. He looked certain, the most dangerous emotion a judge can have. Cain's breath trembled out of him in short, uneven bursts. His wrists shook against the cuffs. His chest heaved like he was struggling to hold himself together with nothing but fraying threads of hope. Victor leaned in close, whispering urgently, "Cain, whatever happens, stay still. Do not collapse. Do not scream. They will use it against you." Cain didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat was locked, his vision fogging at the edges. His mind spiraled around one thought. "He's about to destroy my entire life." Judge Halden shaped the air around the room with every quiet word that followed. "This court," he said, voice steady, "has carefully considered the severity of your violation." Each syllable felt like it weighed a pound. The timing, the nature of the contraband, your silence during discovery, and your previous warnings. He lowered the violation report. "Mr. Rivers, your actions demonstrate not just misconduct, but a profound inability to follow federal rules." Cain blinked, and a tear escaped, falling silently down his cheek. He didn't even attempt to wipe it. He didn't have the strength. Halden continued, "You were given a lenient sentence on October 3rd, a sentence many believed was too lenient." His voice sharpened not loudly, but with precision. "And in return for that leniency, you chose to violate federal trust." Cain's legs shook violently. Victor pressed a hand on his forearm, voice shaking now. "Cain, breathe, breathe." But Cain wasn't breathing. Not properly. He was drowning without water, without motion, just drowning in his own heartbeat. Halden's gaze hardened. "Your violation compels this court to impose an enhanced sentencing measure." A gasp rippled across the room. Victor shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is too far. This is an irreversible punishment." Halden didn't raise a hand this time. He didn't have to. "Sit down," he said calmly. Victor sat as if someone pushed him from behind. Cain stared forward, lips trembling uncontrollably, eyes burning. Halden spoke again. "The Bureau of Prisons classifies this as a severe misconduct incident. The evidence is clear. The risk is established." He folded his hands. "This court finds that your original 50-month sentence is no longer sufficient." Cain's body jolted, as if struck by something invisible. His breath came out in a broken sob. Victor reached for him again. "Cain, hold on, don't fall." But Cain couldn't hold anything. Not his breath, not his composure, not the world slipping through his fingers. Halden leaned forward, eyes dark, unblinking. "Given your violation, the court is authorized to impose the maximum penalty." The room froze. People turned pale. Journalists snapped their heads toward the bench. Phones rose. Hands covered mouths. Cain's soul cracked. "No, no, please, please don't, Your Honor, please." His voice broke into raw pieces, unrecognizable even to himself. He tried to step forward, but the chains pulled him back. He tried to reach for the judge, but Victor grabbed him. "Cain, stop! Don't speak!" But Cain couldn't. His panic spilled out of him like it had nowhere else to go. "Please, I'm begging. I made a mistake. I I didn't mean, please don't take my life away, please. The judge watched him with the same expression one might give an earthquake, observing, bracing, but unmoved. He spoke softly. Mr. Rivers, enough. The courtroom fell into a suffocating silence. Holden straightened the papers in front of him. This court has deliberated. Kane's knees buckled. He screamed through a throat full of pain. No, please, please, don't, please. Victor wrapped an arm around him, trying desperately to hold him upright. Kane, listen, listen, don't collapse, don't collapse. But Kane had collapsed completely, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. He was falling apart in front of the entire country. And then Holden delivered the blow. Mr. Rivers, your original sentence of 50 months is hereby vacated. The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, cameras flashing like lightning, dozens of voices rising at once. Kane felt the world disappear from under him. His legs gave out. He hit the ground hard, knees slamming the floor, hands cuffed, chains rattling. Victor cursed under his breath, trying to lift him. Kane, get up, please, get up! Kane sobbed violently, body shaking, breath shattering into desperate fragments. Please, Your Honor, please don't do this to me. Please. But Judge Holden didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. He closed the file with a final, devastating thud. In light of the defendant's violation, Kane's head snapped upward, eyes bloodshot, pleading silently. Holden finished the sentence without blinking. The court imposes the maximum legal penalty. The room went dead still. No movement, no air, no sound except the pounding heartbeat of fate. Kane froze, like his soul had stopped with his breath. Then Holden delivered the final blow. Mr. Rivers, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters leapt to their feet. Photographers shoved one another closer. Voices screamed over each other. Oh my God! He got life! That's the end of him! They really did it! Kane inhaled, but no air came. Then his scream tore through the courtroom like something animalistic, raw pain made human. No! Please, 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 don't, please! He fell forward onto the floor, his body shaking so violently the chains clattered against the tiles. Two marshals rushed forward. Restrain him! Hold his arms, he's losing it! Get him up now! Kane thrashed weakly, tears flooding down his face. I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry. Please don't do this. Don't. Cassie sat in the back row silent, pale, tears streaming down her cheeks, her hands clasped over her mouth, her heart breaking and shattering again and again as she watched him unravel. Victor screamed at the marshals. Stop, he's having a panic attack. He's not resisting. Stop, stop, take it easy. But the marshals couldn't stop. Protocol didn't allow pauses for heartbreak. One grabbed Kane's chest, another his arms, another his shoulders. They lifted him off the floor. His legs didn't work. His body sagged like it had given up. His sobs tore through him without mercy. Please, please, not life, please don't. Holden rose from the bench. This court is adjourned. One strike of the gavel, sharp, cold, final. The sound echoed through the walls, through the chains, through Kane's collapsing body. The marshals dragged him toward the back exit. His voice broke into smaller, more fragile pieces. Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Please, don't let me die in prison. Please. But the courtroom didn't answer. Only the camera shutters did, as they closed in on Kane's destroyed frame, recording the moment his entire life ended. Because on Wednesday, November 19th, Kane Rivers didn't just lose a hearing. He lost his future. He lost his name. He lost his last chance. Forever. If you want the rest of the shocking updates in this unfolding case, make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications, and like this video right now because more twists are coming and you won't want to miss what happens next.